A presentation of Solution Tree.
The part I like best about working at Viersma Elementary School is there is a belief that these students will succeed and do well, regardless of their social economic status, regardless of their race or ethnicity or background, or whether or not they speak the language or don't. There is a true expectation that these children will be successful and not making excuses for failure.
Because we're using released SOL questions.
In a professional learning community, assessment data is used to target goals for improvement. The focus is on results.
Well, besides strands, I was also talking about the different divisions that the SOL does for the different students, the student populations.
I think a primary difference between traditional approaches to schooling and the ideals of a professional learning community really are embedded in the idea of a results-driven culture. I think that the traditional approaches to schooling does not necessarily focus with a laser-like kind of intensity on the idea of looking at how are kids really doing.
There is that vision that underlies everything, that striving for excellence, but with that is tied in using data. And we've become more adept at that. Even in the 8 years I've been here, it's just incredible how much teachers clamor for that and talk about it and use the data, that you almost forget that that's not normal. And so using the data to drive instruction, to make decision, it's just become part of our everyday vernacular. It's what we do.
I would say that this campus has a lot of what I call data divas, people that relish in looking at data to make informed choices. We have a saying that goes like this, that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So we're constantly changing our instructional calendars, we're changing our scope and sequence, we're changing our methodology, we're changing our practices based upon what the data is telling us.
If you take the results out, it's like trying to steer the ship without any kind of guidance or feedback or signposts. The results are not just the end of the game. They're the signposts and the indicators along the way that tell you how to veer and tack and to improve your efforts. It's as simple as that.
And oftentimes people might feel that as we start to examine more and more data, they might feel that this is sort of a gotcha, but it's not. That our work around data is to inform our practice, and that we need to reflect on the data that's in front of us and take it and learn from it and apply that to what we're doing in the classroom to help our students learn.
When it comes to school improvement, and one of the essential characteristics of being a professional learning community is continuous improvement, we very clearly define goals, learning goals, for every department, and then a couple of goals school-wide that all of us will work towards. And they're SMART goals, and that's an acronym.
SMART goals are strategic and specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound.
The department ones are determined by the group of teachers who are teaching particular courses to take a look at what's our common assessment data from last year. What did we do well in? What didn't we do so well in? And we identify program strengths and program weaknesses. And for those program weaknesses, we say, well, what do we want to focus on the most this year? What's most important for us to improve at so we can help students learn? And so they'll write a SMART goal or two. You can't focus on everything. You can't put all of your resources everywhere at once. Did the exact same thing school-wide. One of our last faculty meetings, we took a look at a comprehensive look at our assessment data, our state assessment data from last year. And from that, we said, okay, what areas do we want to focus upon? Then from there, we said, okay, if we want to focus on these areas, what are some powerful research-based instructional tools that will help us get there? And then we wrote a couple of school-wide SMART goals around that. We're going to put an action plan in place to help achieve those goals, a timeline in place with some common assessment data along the way to see how we are doing. And by the end of this year, it is our hope and our intention to meet or surpass what these goals are.
Our school-wide SMART goal is based on a writing goal, learning how to compare and contrast in writing. What we do is every person in the leadership team will bring ideas and their research, and we build it together.
We use like the Venn diagram, advanced graphic organizers, the T-chart to show evidence of compare and contrast. So by the students organizing information, in the Venn diagram, you can quickly see if a student understands the concept of compare and contrast. And then from that point, as a teacher in each department, perhaps, then you can choose to take it to the next level, which is to, compose a paragraph or all the way into an essay if you decide to.
Very often we're asked, what's the single best strategy available to us for making progress as a professional learning community? And we've come to realize that the best lever you have available to you is to begin to engage collaborative teams in developing common formative assessments. You see, this question that a team, as they work together to answer how will we know if our students are learning, what evidence are we gathering, really requires them to back up and say, well, learn what? What is it we want them to learn? And as soon as they begin to gather the evidence, they're going to discover that some kids haven't learned. And so then their natural reaction is to begin saying, what do we do for the students who haven't learned? So the questions of a learning community really flow up and down from collaborative, formative team assessments. We have found that people don't really start to think and act like a learning community until they're engaged in that joint effort to answer the question, how do we know our students are learning?
This team at Marshall High School is working on a common formative assessment for a class in world history.
Maybe if we could first just make sure, take a look at the new questions I put in. So we're left now with only 3 questions that relate to imperialism.
Is there a way that instead of asking question 72, asking a question that connects this idea of child labor to something that we have studied? Like, what is the connection between child labor and one of the things that we have studied in this one? Because isn't that the reason why we're using current events?
How about if we try to draw where the kids have to start saying, okay, there's still child labor in Africa and India, but there's largely not in this country or England.
Normally at the team meetings, we, as a World II team, first at the beginning of the school year, we establish the content we're going to teach, we create a scope and sequence, and we all commit to doing that. And then in order to hold each other accountable and hold our students accountable, we create quarter exams. And you saw a little bit of that today, where we were analyzing our midterm exam together, and we create those questions and we analyze the validity of those questions.
We first started this process, we realized that people had difficulty getting their arms around how to be a professional learning community, and so we wanted to reduce it to kind of like some sort of systematic process. So what we did was a group of us kind of created this process, which really starts out with what you want students to know, how are you going to know if they know it, then what does the data reveal, and then what are you going to do if they don't know it. And that's a process, it's an ongoing process that loops it out.
Being committed to student learning means carefully monitoring each student's proficiency on each essential skill.
Our kind of approach has always been that if you teach every kid, that if you focus on every kid and go kid by kid by kid, it doesn't really matter their ethnicity or if they're special ed or if they're LEP. And you can see in some of our teams that special ed kids perform as well or better than their peers, that once you kind of go to this process, that you can really focus down, and through the remediation program that you really can see the gap to a degree disappear. But you also have to be able to look at the larger aggregate, and you have to be able to kind of back out and see, are there gaps, and if there are gaps, where are they? So it's kind of working both ways.
We allowed teachers to see what the average scores were on student performances by the average score on the test itself. And some teachers were saying, well, I'm not sure that that's as helpful as maybe something else would be. We can drill down even deeper to the student, and we can have the students grade based on these individual strand areas. And so we can look at a student's score and not only their overall score on an assessment, but how they did in each particular strand on that assessment.
At our meeting this morning, we were analyzing our first quarter data result.
I thought one thing that was interesting when I looked at it is there were some kids that had ended up maybe getting like a 87 or something, and they were actually not proficient in a certain area. And so because I hadn't looked at their individual score in the categories, you can take 87, that's good, they're getting everything, but maybe they would have had 97 if they had understood that one element to the material.
This chart to me is fascinating because it does both those things. It shows us where our individual kids need to improve, and then helps us diagram better where we could help our kids improve also,
So, and these are your maintenance objectives?
Yes, ma'am. Each week at Vaughn Elementary School, Principal Lily Jesse visits grade level teams to review results for a specific subject area.
Our pass rate was 95%, which each week there's a particular subject area that we focus on, whether it's science, social studies, math, reading, or writing. And during that time, we just go over our individual data, and then we go over our grade level pass rates.
100% pass rate. First time out, no retakes. Woo!
All right. Good for you.
That, of course, also.
The data that we collect definitely drives our instruction. As soon as we get our data, it's like a diamond. You don't throw diamonds away, you don't store them away, you let them out. So you have this diamond in front of you, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? You need to polish it. You need to polish your teaching. You need to polish your strategies. You need to go to your teammates. Maybe they have a different cloth to polish that same diamond. So that data that you receive, as soon as you get it, you have 100%, you need to go on. But if you have an 80%, which we feel is bare minimum, if you have an 80%, then you need to do some polishing. And we'll come into the classroom, we'll ask for Title I reading, Title I math, the librarian. We'll ask everyone possible, when they come to your class, can you make sure that you focus on, famous Americans? They really didn't get this particular vocabulary in economics. They really didn't get this. So the data definitely drives our instruction.
Then, at a quarterly data dinner, the grade level teams at Vaughn share their results with the entire staff.
Your excitement is just contagious. I really appreciate your hard work.
One of the issues that people raise sometimes when they learn that learning communities are committed to continuous improvement is how do we sustain the initiative if there's never any real end to it, if we've never fully arrived? The answer to that's very, very clear. You must have small wins.
Yes, 4 stars, and then you will get a brick.
Small wins that are celebrated and recognized, that give people a sense of accomplishment, a sense of achievement, a sense that our efforts not only are working, but are being noted and appreciated. Planning for small wins is different from hoping for small wins. You can't just sit back and wait for something good to happen. You have to be vigilant in trying to gather information to show people that things are working. Here's some of the evidence, and let's applaud and commend those people who have done the hard work that lead to these gains.
The cup is for small achievements, but significant achievements. For example, this young lady came to us, and we had to create a room that was so small in that kindergarten. She's in the small space. She was hired at the very last minute, and she had to adjust. And so I gave her the principal's cup because I felt that she was hired late and was placed in a very small classroom. She never complained about a thing.
And that person is Miss Shirley Bunch.
It is a great honor and privilege to accept this principal's cup on behalf of everyone here. And I thank you all for making it possible for me to get this cup, because without you, there's no me. Thank you.
we have different rewards. Student of the Month assemblies, we acknowledge students. Every teacher will acknowledge a student. Most teachers pick students who have worked significantly and brought grades up.
This is a young man who not only has gotten himself off of pyramid, but made such improvements that he's earning A's in my class. Congratulations, Justin.
You have to let children know what you value through those celebrations. As in birthdays, you value that life. You value that they've grown a year. Well, the same thing with academics. You have to give children recognition. And lots of times, it's not just for major things. It's for little things. It's for recognition for improvement, recognition because you're a good citizen. And that tells the children, this is what we value here. This is what we believe is important to make it in life. And we have some elaborate celebrations. And the reason why we do that is because we feel that in the middle level, you have to be developmentally responsive to this age group. You know, just having punch and cookies for an honor roll party just does not cut it with a 13-year-old. They want to step above. And so we plan these elaborate celebrations and invite the whole community, the mayor, the police chief, you know, the VFW force to come and celebrate what we value. And what we value is integrity, work ethic, good grades, improvement, pride awards, and most of all, we value teamwork. And we celebrate each other and the successes that we have for each other. To ride in to Western music, and kids just didn't expect a horse to come through the doors. And when it did, they went wild. And I felt like a rock star at that point. But more than that, I felt like the kids were seeing that we'll go to great lengths to celebrate their accomplishments.
Focusing on results requires school staff to make cultural shifts.
We meet all the time as a math department, so we're really close. We're not afraid to share information. We're not afraid to discuss data. I was in a leadership meeting with another school, and they don't do a lot of these different activities, and they want to know, well, how would you overcome if someone didn't want to share? And I'm like, well, we don't have that problem. We all share because we're so used to meeting all the time.
Even though it seems kind of scary that no matter what you do in your classroom, you're going to be showing that and sharing that with other people, really we have to be able to trust each other. And I kind of came into this team, and right away we really did trust that if I had 60% pass rate on something, there was going to be somebody that's going to help me to make that better. I think that it feels like sharing data might be something that you are a little apprehensive of doing, but I think it just does make you a better educator because I'm much more focused than I've ever been. I'm new to Virginia, but not new to standardized testing. So I always remember being a little nervous at the end of the year, a little scared about how are my students going to do, what's the performance going to be. There's not going to be any surprises for us.
Sometimes there's an issue about, well, don't people burn out from working hard, and the learning community process sounds like hard work. What we've discovered is it's not hard work that causes burnout, it's negative work. And if people are engaged in something that they're passionate about, they're feeling a sense of success, they've got people to lean into and learn from in a collaborative culture, and they're seeing evidence of the results. Even though the work is hard, it's invigorating. It's work that adds to our sense of worth and a sense that the work we do is significant.
I know in our own personal work we have been greatly influenced by the importance of learning by doing as opposed to maybe trying to get all the answers first and then go out and do it. So we stress greatly the importance of just getting started and doing the work. Commitment follows the work.
And if we can answer why, there you have it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this was that's too much.
The first year that we became a professional learning community, our API rose by 19 points alone. So in 1 year, we surpassed all the growth of the previous 6. This last year on state testing, we grew another 32 points. That's almost 50 points growth within a 2-year period compared to we grew less than 20 over 6. We never talk once about our goal is to improve test scores. We have no goals on this campus or no SMART goals to say it's our goal that our test scores jump. We have a mission to help kids learn. And we believe that the better we help kids learn, the other outside measures that say if we're effective or not are going to take care of themselves.
You know what I love most about being here is watching kids who are not supposed to learn excel. There's absolutely nothing like watching kids that some people think cannot learn, watching them learn.
High five on that, baby. You did not give up. Good job. Come on.